well wherever you are. Hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and I trust that you are rather pissed off. Sunday's game did not go well for the good guys, the boys in blue, the home team, even though they were the road team in this game. The home team, as far as you and I are concerned, the Dallas Cowboys falling on the road in the Windy City on Sunday. 31-14, the final score. That feels disingenuous and that feels misrepresentative of what happened. The gap was so much wider than 17 points. It felt like the Cowboys were really turning a bit of a tide. I think if we look back to the way that week 2 ended for the Cowboys, I know that we all understood and contextualized it by saying it was the Giants and this and that or whatever, but it was early enough in the season that I think we all wondered maybe the Cowboys really are starting to show us something. Maybe they really are going to come out hot in Chicago in week 3 and prove that they are legit. And I think that we all thought they maybe were going to do that. 3 and out to start the game on defense with the Cowboys, and it feels like, holy crap, it's happening. Then Javonte Williams looks great. Then Javonte Williams looks great. And then Tyreek Stevenson has this super impressive defensive play to rip the ball out for a fumble, and that was kind of all the air going out of the balloon. It really, looking back, feels like that was the moment the Cowboys lost the game. I know that's not true. You know that's not true. But that was the last moment in time as we do the autopsy on this whole afternoon that the Cowboys really kind of had any level of control. Everything after that was just poor. Everything after that was a fallacy. Everything after that was a mirage. And maybe what we're looking at relative to the 2025 Dallas Cowboys at large is a mirage. Sunday was one of the more embarrassing games the Cowboys have played in some time. And I am saying this a year removed from the 2024 season. This was atrocious. This was disgusting. This was illogical in a number of ways, including keeping the starting offense out there down 17 late in the game. So this is going to involve a lot of self-reflection from Brian Schottenheimer and from everybody involved from a staffing perspective. But Sunday was a huge demerit, was a huge step backwards, a gigantic leap backwards for a team and a staff and an overall operation that had made a little bit of progress here as of late. So let's look at our comments on YouTube. We are streaming live in the Bleacher Report app and on YouTube, the Blog and the Boys YouTube channel. If that is not obvious, like the video, subscribe. My name is RJ Ochoa. You can follow me on social media on basically any level. If you search for RJ Ochoa, that's my ex username, Instagram, Threads. I'm on TikTok, RJ.Ochoa. I'm all over the place talking Dallas Cowboys. Go like my Facebook page, and you can obviously interact with me however and wherever you want. If you're looking to connect with me one-on-one, the best place to do that, I tell people always, is Instagram DMs. Let's get to some of your comments on the YouTube side of things. Rick Mickey says, Eberflus is Rod Marinelli 2.0. Sucks. Andy Reeves says, the defense sucks. Why did they sign Clowney? 1./JG26_JDog. Always a mouthful, but I enjoy doing it. Eberflus needs to be fired. The defense is trash. Outclassed by Caleb Williams. That game should have been won without CeeDee Lamb, in case anybody obviously missed it, and we're waiting on some updates from Brian Schottenheimer. I've got my external monitor over here always, so I'll keep you updated on what he has to say. Caleb Williams tied his career high in passing touchdowns. Like, think about this. I know it's way too early to jump to any serious conclusion about Caleb Williams as an NFL quarterback, but up until Sunday, the collective NFL fandom had decided that Caleb Williams sucked. The Bears offense looked grossly incompetent through the first 2 weeks of the season, and Caleb Williams tied a career high in passing touchdowns against the Cowboys defense on Sunday, and he did it in the first 3 quarters. Granted, it took basically the final seconds of the third. Caleb Williams, found the magic elixir. He found the magic antidote, and it was playing the Dallas Cowboys defense. And I would not be shocked. I don't think any of us would be shocked if the Bears kind of fall back down to earth if the clock strikes midnight and if they turn back into a pumpkin next week in week 4. But for the Cowboys to not just lose, not just fall to the Bears, and not just lose by 17, right? Like, that's part of it, but to not even look competitive, against an offense that, again, was moribund for 8 quarters of NFL football. The only time in which any NFL fan thought the Bears offense had life this season was their opening possession of the year against the Vikings back in week 1 on Monday Night Football. So for the Cowboys to get worked by them is, I know that nobody is shocked at the fact that the Cowboys defense is pretty poor based on what we've seen to this point on the season. But this is circle, neon light, exclamation points, underlining, bold emphasis. This is as flagrant and as big of an indictment as there can possibly be in that regard. Let's see. Jerry Jones, this is a tweet from John Machado of The Athletic, said about CeeDee Lamb that it's not as serious as it could have been. And Jerry said, let's just keep our fingers crossed. So we'll see what else everybody has to say about this. Shane Davis says on YouTube, Russell Wilson will struggle to throw for 100 yards tonight, LOL. I said this in the lead up. I said it to Aaron Lemming in our chat this week on the YouTube channel. Aaron covers the Bears. I said that I was hoping against hope that Russell Wilson would just go off on Sunday Night Football against the Chiefs. Maybe you're watching this video after that, but at this moment we're live and he has not played. And yeah, it would be quite sobering if Russell Wilson looked terrible. I think we all expect that on some level, but it would still be sobering nonetheless. David Smith says, get used to it. Green Bay next. Rest easy. Cornell Miller says our defense is getting torched. Rick Mickey says, I don't understand it, but every coaching staff loves Donovan Wilson and Terrence Steele, and they both should be benched. Donovan Wilson had a great year and a contract year for the Cowboys. I think that we can admit that. We can say that objectively. We can acknowledge that that was probably the peak version of him. Terrence Steele, I think, outperformed what he was for the Cowboys back when he was a UDFA in 2020, and coaching staffs tend to like guys who work hard, who grind, who put in the effort, who put in the work. And he certainly did that. And you can argue, obviously, that we're a long way removed from those days and that the Cowboys should consider moving on. And I think that they probably will in the offseason. But right now they're up a creek. Let's see here. Lil Max says, start all fantasy players versus Dallas's defense. There is always that team, right? Like if you're of a certain age, for a while, it was always start anybody who's playing the Saints back in the Drew Brees era. Like you always wanted those, you wanted a piece, you wanted a share of whatever offense was going up against that defense. So you knew you could benefit, you knew you could prosper. And that's who the Cowboys are. Next week, you want to start all your Packers. And it's a little bit different because it seems like every team, for some reason, and this is not a woe is me thing, but every team has some personal vendetta or everybody wants to get one over the Cowboys. That is kind of the cost of being so famous, right? And I mean, it felt kind of personal for Ben Johnson, and I think we all kind of recognize that. The Lions have felt like things were personal with the Cowboys ever since the reporting is eligible thing. Let's see here. Making sure... Courtney Cronin, who does a great job covering the NFL at large for ESPN, just noted that this was Caleb Williams' first career game without being sacked. Let's think about this for a second. I'm going to say this sentence out loud, and I want you to let it waft over you. I want you to let it marinate for a second. On Sunday against the Dallas Cowboys, Caleb Williams played an NFL game for the first time in which he was not sacked. I am not going to relitigate the Micah Parsons situation. What I am going to tell you is that is impossible. And that is impossible against a quarterback that is still so young and so raw in the way that Caleb Williams is. Caleb Williams loves to take sacks. Caleb Williams loves to invite opportunities to be sacked. You almost have to go out of your way to play in a manner in which this does not happen to him, as evidenced by literally 100% of his career to this point in time. So the fact that the Cowboys couldn't get to Caleb Williams, couldn't get a single sack against him, isn't just about the fact that they traded away Micah Parsons a few weeks ago at this point in time. It's about being completely and totally out of structure in everything they're trying to do on defense. This Cowboys defense is disorganized. This Cowboys defense does not have a plan. This Cowboys defense, to quote the great philosopher Phoebe Buffet, talking about all sorts of different things, does not even have a plot. Like this defense is just 11 dudes out there hanging out, trying to figure it out. And sometimes they might, sometimes they may get lucky, like with a Russell Wilson arm punt. But for the most part, if you have even a shred of competence, you're going to be able to find high levels of success. So much so that now I'm kind of reverse judging Jalen Hurts for not being able to have more success through the air against this team. I say that tongue in cheek, but I mean, it is a really tough scene when you are just helping every single quarterback fix each and every single thing that they had as a problem before they got to you while playing you. That's who the Cowboys are. D-Day 2 says, can we flex the Cowboys out of Sunday Night Football? There is no way that is going to happen. Next Sunday is going to do numbers. Next weekend, I've been saying this for a while, is like an amazing sports weekend. I love golf. I've been talking about this. It's the Ryder Cup. We've got Penn State, Oregon on Friday night. My Sun Devils host TCU. I think is it Bama Georgia week? There's so many things happening. And then Sunday is Eagles Bucks and all sorts of amazing things. And then we get Cowboys Packers on Sunday Night Football. Obviously, after the Americans win the Ryder Cup, it's going to be incredible. It's going to help me distract from the fact that the Cowboys are going to lose big time next Sunday night. This was RB Cowboy on Bleacher Report says the D is pathetic. Ross 2782 says this looks like 2020 Mike Nolan defense. We have to figure out how to combat Eberflus every week before we even begin to think about the opponent. Look, relative to Matt Eberflus, I will be straight up with everyone. I like Matt Eberflus. I have said a lot that Matt Eberflus does not get enough credit for what he accomplished as the Cowboys linebackers coach before leaving to Indianapolis and then obviously parlaying that into the head coaching job in Chicago. I was very excited about the return of Matt Eberflus. I think Ed Werder made a great point before this game ended, and this is not like a cope or anything about Matt Eberflus, but we must consider fairly, if we're going to bag on anybody or criticize anybody or praise anybody, we must consider that Matt Eberflus is in his first season as the Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator, and 7 days before the season began, the front office traded away his best player. It's a difficult thing for Brian Schottenheimer to lose Micah Parsons. Everybody lost Micah Parsons. Matt Eberflus lost him 7 days before the season began. That is a very, very, very tall order to have to overcome. Again, there's a long list of things that we can place at the feet of Matt Eberflus in ways that he has to be better, in ways that he has to attack opposing quarterbacks and opposing offenses at large. Again, the fact that Caleb Williams wasn't sacked a single time in this game is representative of that. But we should be fair in saying that. And maybe you want to say that and say, I'm still 10 out of 10, Matt, and you would not be wrong for that. All I'm saying is include the fact that the man's, hand was tied behind his back right before the season began. That is very much worth saying. Andy Reeves says, can we borrow the Browns defense for next week? I don't think so. J.J./JG26_JDog, man, I messed it up this time. So should have hired Rex Ryan to be defensive coordinator. I'm real pissed off at Matt Eberflus, J-Dog, but I would 100 out of 100 times take him over Rex Ryan at this point in time. Shane Davis says the defensive talent has been drastically depleted since Quinn left just 2 years ago. Eberflus has nothing to work with. I agree with that to a large degree, and losing Micah Parsons is kind of the face of that. But yeah, like the peak of who this Cowboys defense is or was throughout the 3-year run that they had with Dan Quinn, they had Micah Parsons. They had DeMarcus Lawrence. This defense doesn't have DeMarcus Lawrence either. They had Jaron Kearse playing very well. They had the peak version of Trayvon Diggs. They had the amazing version of DeRon Bland. They had all sorts of, tools and options to work with. And the cupboard is just more bare. And I don't want to spend an enormous amount of time just making excuses for Matt Eberflus because I fully agree that he has to be better. There's zero way about it. I completely and totally 1,000,000% agree with the comment we had a little while ago. CeeDee Lamb left this game like 5 seconds in. And that was super unfortunate. That was super devastating. And I think we all thought, oh no, that's going to be what unravels this game for the team. Now, a lot of things pulled at that thread and a lot of things unraveled it, but I don't think any single one of them was CD leaving. It was a bummer, and I hope CD's okay. We'll see what the Cowboys say, obviously, as the week moves on and we get closer to the Packers game. But this game was lost in a number of ways that had nothing to do with CeeDee Lamb. Look, we can talk a lot of things about George Pickens, but his presence is what mitigated the loss of CeeDee Lamb. What a duh statement and a reason why we've been telling this front office to get a proper wide receiver opposite of CeeDee Lamb for several years at this point in time. This game was lost because this defense could not stop anybody. And this game was lost because the way the Cowboys are constructed is so that the offense must be perfect. And that is not going to happen. There's not a singular offense in the NFL that is going to be perfect. There's not a singular offense in this NFL that's going to be perfect for one quarter, for one game. I mean, so to demand, not even ask, but demand, to require the offense to be perfect every possession, every quarter, every game, every month, all season long just isn't sustainable. You're going to run into a game like this one against Chicago where you run up against a defensive coordinator, a defensive play caller, someone like Dennis Allen who can win a couple of times, who can win a series or two in a row, and who can put you behind the 8 ball. And this team cannot overcome that unless the offense is going shot for shot with whoever they're playing in that specific game. They are completely and totally sold out. This team is top heavy in that regard. Yes, they have Dak Prescott. Yes, at the time they had CeeDee Lamb and obviously have George Pickens, and Jake Ferguson had a solid game, was reliable and dependable. And despite the fumble, I think Javonte Williams had a solid game. But they just cannot be the plan. That is not going to work at any point in the NFL. And Sunday in Chicago is sort of case in proof of that matter. Rick Ursulini says, hi, RJ, the secondary is lost. Yeah, I mean, look, they're playing with a clearly not 100% Trayvon Diggs. They're playing without DeRon Bland. They still don't have Savon Ravel. In the defense of objectivity and in the defense of facts and data, they don't have a lot of things, but that's why you have to supplement your roster in the right ways. J-Dog says a perfect offense wouldn't have been enough with this crap defense. I agree with that. I agree with that effort, but I don't think that, look, I am fully on board with everyone and that the defense is what's holding this team back. This defense is going to be the reason that they don't achieve X, Y, or Z this season. But I think it's more than fair to say that the offense was lifeless for a lot of this game in Chicago. This offense, again, the requirement, the ask of them is inordinate and is impossible, but they ultimately, weren't able to get it done. And we can sit here and we can say it's unfair and it's not right and whatnot. But if we think about it, these are the Cowboys' possessions in this game against Chicago. The opening fumble, which was a bummer, and they had the field goal, another field goal, touchdown, punted it away, and then the end of half. And their first possession after halftime, they got the ball. Remember, the Cowboys had to start the third quarter. That possession, 7 plays, 18 yards, and a punt. So, I mean, that was the chance. That was really it. If you have to boil it down to a, kind of 5-minute stretch, that possession lasted 5, game minutes, that was it, because the Cowboys were down at that point in time 10 points, and they could not go make it a 3-point game or a 7-point game, a 1-possession game, and that's unfair. It's impossible. It's not right to ask the offense to do all of the work that way, but that was the moment, and that was where the avalanche started, because after that, the Bears scored again. It's a 17-point game. You're trying like crazy. Dak's having to press. Dak's having to force. You get the interception. Joe Milton comes in. He throws an interception. The last 3 possessions of this game for the Cowboys were interceptions. 2 of them obviously belonging to Dak Prescott and 1 belonging to Joe Milton, because at that point, they're having to get reckless. They're having to be dangerous. They're having to do all sorts of different things in the name of just trying to make it a 1-possession game. And that's just not viable. That's not sustainable for any team in the NFL. Hot Mike User on Bleacher Report says, why do y'all care? It's obviously a rebuild. Look, I'm going to say this one time, and that's a lie, because I'm going to have to say this again. But the Cowboys are not obviously anything. I don't like to do the if anything annoys me thing, but what particularly annoys me is when people say that anything is obvious with the Cowboys. There is no obvious plan. That is my most common denominator criticism of this team, is that they don't have a singular North Star. If they had not signed Dak Prescott, if they had not signed CeeDee Lamb, and then they had traded away Micah Parsons, then yeah, you could 100% stand on that business and say they are obviously tanking. They are obviously collecting assets. They are obviously rebuilding and restocking the most important positions on the team. But that's not what happened. They paid CeeDee Lamb in the 11th hour. They paid Dak Prescott in the 11th hour in the 59th minute. And then the literal year later, they traded away Micah Parsons. So they're moving northeast and southwest and outright west and outright north. They're not moving in one singular direction. If you move in one singular direction and I don't think it's the way you should go, that's fine. I can square that. I can make logic out of that in my brain, because all of your efforts and concentration are behind one motivation, one modus operandi, one objective that you were trying to reach. But when you're trying to do a little bit of this and you're trying to do a little bit of that and also some of this and also some of that, you're stretching yourself too thin and nothing is possible. So no, there is no obvious to anything the Cowboys are doing right now. And if you think there is, then you're taking the cheese, because there is no way that you can logically derive that opinion from anything they've been doing as of late. On YouTube, thank you, David J, for the super chat. Says it's kind of hard to score a lot of points against a team that has the ball for 8 minutes in a quarter. The offense couldn't get on the field. They maybe had 4 possessions with Dak. And I agree. If you think about it, in the second half specifically, as I mentioned, the Cowboys touched the ball to open the half, and they had that possession where they punted the ball away. Then he threw 2 interceptions. That was it. The Cowboys had 3 offensive possessions, because after that possession to start the second half that the Cowboys had, the Bears, I mean, it was masterful. I'm salty about it. I think you're salty about it, but it was a clinic what Ben Johnson did. 19 plays, 76 yards, and obviously the touchdown that Caleb Williams had at the very end, just about as time expired in the third quarter. It was perfect. I mean, it was quite literally as perfect of a drive as you could pull up and derive in that particular moment in time. Up 10, you get the touchdown, the nail in the coffin to make it 17 points with the fourth quarter left at home. Everyone's going wild. Everyone's feeling great. That's the way that you want to play in the NFL. So yeah, the Cowboys didn't touch the ball on a frequent enough basis in the third quarter, obviously, to really make it a game, but they costed themselves. And it's difficult to say that because we're demanding perfection of the offense at this point in time, but that's the way the team is constructed. I'm not advocating for that level of construction, but that's the way it is. And when you're down 10 points, you get the ball to start the second half and you don't score, you invite that kind of opportunity. And then when it happens, you are even more up a creek. And next week, you've got to play Micah Parsons and the Packers. It does not get any easier. On Bleacher Report, Diego says, we are going nowhere this season. Be a seller this trade deadline and tank it for draft picks. Well, at least the Packers lost today, so that draft pick improved. Shane on YouTube says offense could have been more productive if they could have ran a proper offense. The run game has been good this year. If we're looking for positives, if we're stretching for positives, there's no question that the run game is at the very top of that list. Again, Javonte Williams had the fumble, and that was a real big bummer. Personally, I'm willing because we've seen it over the life of 3 games now, to just say, dude, Tyreek Stevenson made a badass play. Like, I wish it hadn't happened, and I wish Javonte Williams had held onto the ball and hadn't let it happen to him. But dude, that was sick. I mean, sometimes somebody just does something amazing and you're on the wrong end of it. And I think that that's what that was. It is, funny in a like terrible way to look back and say like, yeah, that was clearly where things fell off the rails for the Cowboys. But it was just an amazing play by the defender in that moment in my mind. Brian Schottenheimer, this is a tweet from Mike Ducey, the GOAT. Schottenheimer confirms ankle sprain for Lamb. Jerry Jones says Lamb told him doctors feel the injury is not as serious as it could have been. More tests to come. Okay, so that's where we're at with CeeDee Lamb. We'll obviously keep you updated all week long at Blog on the Boys. Different, news, notes, whatever reports about CeeDee and his health. That will obviously be something that people are paying attention to as the week unfolds. Rick on YouTube says Dak has been absolutely incredible, but we can't expect him to win every game by himself. And that's the problem. This is what I said after the week 1 game. Dak and the offense at that time went 3 straight possessions down by 4 and didn't score, and they lost. And I know he was very good in that game, but the ask of him, as unfair as it is that the ask of him is to be perfect. And when he's not, the team is going to lose. And I think it's dumb to build your team that way, but that's what the Cowboys have done inadvertently or intentionally. I really don't know, because again, it's impossible to draw any kind of logic out of what they're doing. But this has to be, and that makes the fact that people hate on the dude really silly and whatnot. But this has to be like a perfect season for Dak. Dak has to be remarkable. Dare I say, Dak has to be flawless, or else the Cowboys aren't going to stand much of a chance in any single game. And if you don't believe me, hello, welcome to the 2025 season. Ease SB on YouTube says this game was lost as soon as that embarrassing turnover happened. What a way to set the tone. Again, I don't know that it was embarrassing. It was tough. It was a tough scene, but I mean, it was just an awesome play. I'm not going to call it embarrassing. I understand that some people feel that way, but I don't share that disposition personally. X Lex Manix on Bleacher Report says, I wouldn't be surprised if Eberflus gets fired before week 6 or week 7. I would. That's not a Cowboys thing, because like, play that out, right? And this is an unfortunate exercise, but play it out. Matt Eberflus is fired tomorrow. Okay, who's calling defensive plays? Like that's my question to you. Who's that person doing it? Who is the person, if the Cowboys fire Matt Eberflus, whenever that is, who's the person that steps in and runs the defense? I don't know who that is. And obviously there is a like chain of command logical answer, but Brian Schottenheimer is already stretched thin because he's the offensive play caller as the team's head coach. So he's already juggling a lot of duties. He has Matt Eberflus on staff, somebody who's a former NFL head coach, somebody who he can, and again, I recognize how this sounds right now. I recognize that literally everyone is down on Matt Eberflus, but right now he can kind of hand the keys to the defense to Matt Eberflus and say, hey dude, like run this, take care of this. I'm going to do everything else on offense, and I'm going to be the leader and the head coach and check in on things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so if you lose Matt Eberflus, you make life significantly more complicated for Brian Schottenheimer, because you don't have that obvious, kind of, what goes up must come down proposition. So it's a tough scene. D Sports 79 says, with the defense this bad, our offense has to stay on the field with long drives and control the clock. Yeah. I mean, like, think about it. It's one thing. The Bears had the ideal NFL drive, the ideal modern NFL drive at the end of the third quarter. We all agree. It was 1 million plays, took up basically the entire third quarter. It was awesome. It was perfect. Those types of things are so difficult. Those types of things are impossible. Those types of things are very, very, very unlikely to be pulled off in perfect execution the way the Bears did. And I think that the fact that, and I don't mean to make this about them, the fact that the Eagles do that with such regularity is why they're such a good team. Because when you can do that, when you can work that way, when you can control the tempo and control the rhymes and rhythms of an NFL game, you can be the one in charge. And the Cowboys are in a position where they're constructed as so that they have to do that every possession. Like it's an impossible thing to do once. Think about how many things had to go right for the Bears to pull that one off at the end of the third quarter. And it was remarkable. It was a 10 out of 10. If this was the slam dunk contest, like 10. But it's not a sustainable thing. Like you can obviously start a drive and be like, hey, let's go burn up 9 minutes and go 73 yards and end up with a touchdown. That is so hard to do. And the Cowboys have put themselves in a position where they're like, Dak, CeeDee, George, Brock Hoffman, you're in at center, etc. All of y'all gather around, get in the huddle. We need you to do this. And if you do it next time you get the ball, which is going to be pretty quick because the defense is going to let Caleb Williams, hit, Luther Burden for a 65-yard touchdown on one play, then you got to go do it again. So you got to do this each and every single time. Cool. it's just not a good plan. And we're seeing the warts of that play itself out, or at least saw the warts of it play itself out on Sunday afternoon in Chicago. On Bleacher Report, the greatest 92-79 says the Dallas Cowboys are officially the Cincinnati Bengals in the NFC. They have a top 10 offense and a bad defense. I don't know that anybody's the Bengals right now, but I get what you're saying. That point makes some sense relative to recent history. You know the deal says, let's see how things look once we get Bland and Overstrom back. I agree with this. Way too early to wave the white flag. Things on defense can only improve, right? Insert blind faith. So on the subject of waving the white flag, I tweeted this during the game, and I didn't see a ton of people who agreed. So John Machota, the Athletic, by the way, tweeting out that CeeDee Lamb said his ankle is all right and that he absolutely feels like he can play next week. So everything seems okay on that front. I'm curious for the class's opinion. Cowboys are down 17. There are 8 minutes approximately left in the game. They're down on their own side of the field because of the way things went. And there's again 8 minutes left in the game. And Brian Schottenheimer sends out the offense and the starting offense, and he's throwing the ball, and Dak Prescott's taking sacks. You let me know your opinion. I'm not saying I'm right, and if you disagree, that you are wrong. But if you want to know my opinion, I think that was insanely dumb. I think that was insanely silly. I don't know if it was a point of pride, but I think we all knew, we all understood, we're all adult enough to acknowledge that down 17, 8 minutes left in this game, they were never going to pull it off. They were never going to win. Maybe your perspective is, hey, you want to go put some good stuff on tape. You want to go feel like you did something. You want to go put together a drive. And they almost did. They got down to basically the goal line on 4th and goal, and then Dak Prescott got intercepted. But to me, that was silly. That was ridiculous. That was just wasting time and inviting bad things, because Dak Prescott takes a sack and you've got dudes getting hurt in this game. CeeDee Lamb got hurt in this game, right? Like, there's no reason in my mind at that point. And I think that that's evidenced by the fact that on the next possession, Schottenheimer pulled Dak and put in Joe Milton. So what is the reason that you're trotting Dak Prescott out, with 17 points as far as your deficit and 8 minutes left on the clock? I don't know. And maybe it's a matter of Dak wanted to go in, Dak fought to do it, whatever. But if you think that this team can compete and we can make our jokes and whatever, and you think they can be a playoff team and they can challenge and whatever, and you're only 1-2, fine. But you have to live to fight another day. You can't just be letting dudes, take needless damage when you're down 17 with 8 minutes left on the road. That's my opinion. And if you disagree, I'd certainly love to hear why. Johnny Boy RN says, I completely agree. I thought Milton was going to come in at that point of the game. Shane Davis says, I think you have to see if you can get a quick score and see what happens. Yeah, like maybe that's the perspective. Maybe you think obviously there's a chart, there's permutations. You say there's 8 minutes. We technically believe we could score 3 times. If that's the answer, and you tell yourself there's a 6% chance of this working, obviously making a lot of numbers up, and we're going to play for that 6%. Okay, I disagree, but at least as I mentioned with you got to have one North Star. At least your idea is founded in reason and logic. That's really all I care about. But if it's about pride, and if it's about no, we want to go out and we want to put up a fight, that's dumb and that's silly. Because again, Dak Prescott took a sack early in that possession. And what none of us need, what nobody involved needs, is for the franchise quarterback, who's one of, if not the best player on the team at this particular moment in time, nobody needs him taking needless damage in a game that you've already lost. That is the collective point. I think we all agree with that. It's just a matter of where you fall on trying to win. I understand some people feel like, no, they're paid all this money, and so they got to be out there. They got to soak up all the embarrassment. I think that's the most far out there take, but hey, to each their own. Let's see here. David J says, I'll never understand why we didn't use Javonte on the goal line. Yeah, I mean, join the club. Joe Guerra says, Eberflus overrated. What I would respond to that is like, I was very happy about Matt Eberflus getting signed. So maybe you're going to point the finger at me, but was anybody like, hell yeah? Was anybody like, bet, because the Cowboys signed him? I don't think that was the disposition. I think it was a matter of like, yeah, this makes sense. This is smart. I can see this working. I like the idea behind it. I don't think anybody was like Super Bowl because Matt Eberflus was hired. So I don't really know that he was overrated, because was he ever rated that high is kind of my question. And maybe you could argue, and you would be fair if you wanted to do this, but in saying that if he was never rated that high, if he was never good enough that he even had the opportunity to be overrated, why even do it? That makes sense in a weird way. Jesus Millie, is it Millie? It's Jesus Mill says, honest question. Do you really think they have a chance on winning anything this year? Yeah, they have a chance. They have one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. They have one of the best pass catching duos in the NFL. It's a very difficult thing, obviously, to expect them to be good or as good as they need to be on a regular basis, but it's totally possible. I mean, if you do believe that they're the Bengals of the NFC, if you want to live in that, analogy, we've seen the Bengals be good enough. We've seen the Bengals win things. We've seen the Bengals, put it together long enough to contend. I know that they've only been to one Super Bowl and whatnot, and we would freak out if this team even managed to get there. I'm not saying that's the future. I'm not like wish casting or hope casting or cope casting. I'm just saying they could absolutely win things. They have the most important things taken care of, but it's just a very difficult proposition. On Bleacher Report, let's see here. P Town Hustle says the safeties are traffic cones. Yeah, I would challenge you to find anything about the defense. If this was that wouldn't be a kind analogy. But my point is, name the thing. You are starting random team X. You are going to be the Purple Cobras. All right. And you get to take any player you want from the Cowboys defense. Who is it? I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm asking you the question. You are the GM of the Purple Cobras, and this is an expansion draft, and you can take, I don't have anybody protected. You can take any player from the Dallas Cowboys defense. Who are you taking? And even if it doesn't cost you anything, even if it's not a matter of I don't want that salary cap space. If you can just have them, if you can just have any player you want on your Purple Cobras from the Cowboys defense, who are you taking? Alex Storm says Clark, talking about Kenny Clark. So cool. The guy who's been on the team for 3 weeks. That would be, kind of an indictment of everybody else. Q400 says Bland. Okay. Deron Bland, who's not playing right now. Right. So we kind of agree, collectively, the collective point, that the point in bringing this up is the guy who one person would take has been on the team for maybe a few cups of coffee. The other guy who was named as an option is injured and is currently not playing. So overshown is an answer from Chuck on YouTube. So of all the dudes who were playing on the field on Sunday in Chicago, the one you can think of at the top of your head is the guy who just joined the team and who was acquired by way of a trade that a lot of us disagreed with. I know that emotions have made us feel differently about it in hindsight, but you get my point. The cupboard is bare on defense. And I think that, that was pretty evident. Osa from Nunya Business, that's a great point. Osa Digizua. That's the thing. Even if you're a great player on this defense right now, you look bad by association. You know what I mean? It's difficult to stand out because I don't know what the opposite of a rising tide that lifts all boat is. I guess a sinking tide that sinks all boats, but you're part of that. You know what I mean? You're just one of the boats at this point in time. If you're somebody good. Diesel 80 says, RJ, what is our record at the end of the season? And then tell me we aren't tanking. They're not going to tank. The Cowboys don't tank. And that's not a pride thing or whatever thing. That's not what they do. I think that I maintain that they're going to win somewhere between 8 and 11 games. Depending on which way the ball bounces, they're going to win some game. They probably shouldn't at some point in this run. They're going to lose games like this, and it's going to be a bumpy ride, and it's going to be chaotic, and it's going to make us want to pull our hair out, and it's going to be awful and terrible. And then there's going to be moments that are enthralling and just, intoxicating and perfect and mesmerizing. But I think they're going to win somewhere between 8 and 11 games. And I think that the Packers are going to make the playoffs, and they're going to have 2 first-round picks that are both, somewhere around, 17 and 28 or something like that. And maybe they package them and get up to 12, or maybe they just sit there and pick. I don't know. But if you had to ask me the way that the next whatever it is, 6, 7, 8 months go for the team, I would envision, that personally. Okay. So that sucked and was not fun. And it was made worse by the fact that not only did the Eagles win in last second fashion, but guess who has 2 thumbs and was going up against Caleb Williams in his Dynasty League of record and felt pretty good about it all week long because, as we've discussed many times, Caleb Williams does not look good. So I was sitting here thinking I got this. And you know what I don't got is this. So just a tough day, tough outing for me. But I've got some leftover pizza that I'm about to go crush. And I hope you've got some version of leftover pizza in your life, whether it's actual leftover pizza or a television show you're going to catch up on. I watched the new Superman movie, kind of good. I was surprised. I didn't think it was going to be that good. So that was kind of nice. I did that over the weekend. My Sun Devils won. My Gators lost. So, I'm kind of batting 500 overall. My Astros can't get it done this weekend, but Manchester United won, right? Like that's what sports do, is they rope us back in and somebody wins and then somebody loses. It's just it's beautiful and terrible all at the same time. Okay, let's go ahead and get out of here. Tomorrow, Monday, new video on the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel. Day after thoughts, winners and losers, just kind of a collection of emotions after we've all had one night's worth of rest and a chance to sleep on it all. I'll have my stock report available up on blogontheboys.com. Lots of action on my socials, X, Instagram, Threads at RJ Ochoa, TikTok, RJ.Ochoa. Obviously, right here at the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel. Like the video, subscribe. All those videos get posted as shorts as well. Like my Facebook page. I'm on the book. That's right. We used to say that about a yellow physical book, but you kids now, we talk about a purple icon with an F on it. I'm on the book. Yeah, if you want to email me, that's your thing, rj.ochoa@sbnation.com. But for now, my friends, I'm going to bid you all adieu. Going to hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening. I cannot wait to see you and do it all again and get ready for Micah Parsons week. It is going to be... It's going to be toxic. Like let's just let's just say it's going to be terrible. Like every single day is going to be terrible, and then the game's going to happen, and that's probably going to be even worse. But it's Ryder Cup week, so let's go red, white, and blue, and yeah, let's go ahead and get out of here. Eat something delicious, watch something amazing on television, be your wonderful self, and I can't wait to see you soon. Thank you so much, everybody, for hanging out, and we will see you next time.